dug out those 2-inch flitches and got them stacked up there to resaw them or to edge them, make boards out of them. Well, I didn't do anything yesterday. It was drizzling a little bit yesterday and my back hurts bad. I didn't feel like doing anything. Although it hurt just as bad when I sit as when I do come out and do something. So I decided I better get my butt out here and get something done. Anyway, I've got those flitches lined up on there, stacked up. I can't just do them one at a time. My clamps aren't wide enough for that. If they're that tall and everything, it won't hold them up. So anyway, I've got them lined up here. Go ahead and make a cut on them. Now, there's only one of those that's not really very good as a 2x6. Actually, there's two of them that aren't very good, but one of them is really pretty poor, but it'd make a good brace or something like that. The rest of them are usable. Some of them I can use for my floorboards, my deck boards and stuff on there, a couple of them. Well, I got all those 2x6s that I cut out of those flitches put away, and as I was hauling them off, I'd get a little better idea what I had out of them. So I had 10 2x6s out of that. Two of them aren't very good. They would be okay for bracing or something else, but they've got a lot of wane in them, and I don't know how good they'd be saving some of those out like that for my son for his floor joists in his moose camp. But they might work for that. We'll have to see. 3 of them I think that are what you'd call construction grade. They get a little bit of wane on them, and then I had 5 of them that were really good, really nice 2x6s. Well, I got another log put up on there now. I didn't think this one was quite as big. It doesn't have as much groundswell on the butt. It's 24 inches on the butt, and then it tapers down to 19.5 inches on the top. Well, I measured that one up from the deck up to the center of the heart on each end, and it was 14 inches on this end and 12 inches on the other end. Oh, it's sticking up in the air a little bit. It sweeps up on that other end, so that's why there's not as much difference as you'd think there would be in that much taper. So anyway, I just jacked it up a little bit on there and put a 1-inch stub underneath it on that end to hold it up, and that should get the grain, the heart lined up parallel to the cut. So that one can start to be whittled down. I put another log on here the other day and started making the cuts on it, and I got the first slab off of there, and then I cut down and got a 1-inch flitch off of there. I wasn't very happy with the way the mill was running. It was starting to misfire and it just wasn't running very good, so I decided I would do a tune-up on it, do a little work on the engine. Well, the weather turned off snotty. It was rainy and my back was telling me I didn't need to be out here, and so I didn't get anything done for a day. I come out yesterday. I was going to start tuning it up, and I thought, well, maybe I'll see if it's just because it was cold. And when I first bought this mill, it would run really nice when I first started it up and run through several cuts. But when I'd shut it off to change a log out and stuff or go to lunch or something like that, then I couldn't get it started again. It turned out to be a bad coil. That's a typical indication of a bad coil. But this was seemed like it was running okay when it started up, but then it'd start missing and didn't have any power. So I thought I'd check things over on it, and I didn't think it was the coil, but I decided to start it up yesterday and see if it would run good cold. So I got it set up and and cut a 2-inch flitch off of there, and that was just running like crap. So then I knew it wasn't coil. Well, anyway, I got busy on it today and went through and adjusted the valves, and they weren't really too bad. Intake valve on number 1 cylinder was a little tight, and the exhaust valve on that one was a little tight too. So I opened those up, and the 2 on the number 2 cylinder were just fine. I bought a set of points for it several years ago, and spark plugs for it, and I never did put them in. I opened it up, opened the points up, and the points were in pretty good shape, so I just cleaned the points up and reset the point gap. And the same with the spark plugs, I just cleaned them up and reset the gap, put it all back together, and it worked fine after that. The spark plugs were all sooted up, they were really black, so that indicates, you know, a pretty rich mixture. I opened up the points box, and the points were not in very nice shape, so it took me a while, but I found a new set of points that I'd bought for it and got those in and set the points on those, got new spark plugs out, and I was going to get a new air filter, but they didn't have one here in town, so I cleaned up the old air filter and put it back on, started it up, and it ran better, but not as good as it should. So I started adjusting the carburetor. I put a new carburetor on it last year and had it adjusted, but it must have come out of adjustment, because once I got that set up and leaned out, then both the idle mixture and the full mixture, then it's running like a champ now. So I'll go ahead and get this log rolled over. I got enough off of that face of that to get a start on that. That's cut down to 18 inches on this end. So I'll go ahead and roll that log over and then take some stuff off of the other side of it and start getting it squared up. Well, that log is now laying pretty flat on the deck. It's pretty much squared up. Well, we've got to take account for the taper in this. And this side here, of course, this butt end is, I don't know what that is. You get the tape measure and measure that out, figure out where the heart is, and on both ends, and then compensate for that. I cleaned the sawdust off that second face that I cut and looked at it in the first face to try to figure out what I was going to do. Those two faces both are just beautiful till they get down to that other end where that defect is in the log, or was in the log. But it was new growth or something there. I don't know what happened there, but that had a big fold in it. And it's like it's green and cadmium layer in there all the way down in it, and kind of like a secondary growth or something on the tree right there. A spot where it started growing again or something. I don't know. There was no limb there or anything, but it's split out right there. So it didn't look like it was going to make any difference how I cut that. It's whether I took another cut off of that second face, or if I turned it and took another cut off the first face, or what. I wasn't going to get past that for a ways, and if I did, I was going to get down to where I was going to start messing it up, because this side here and the fourth side have both got a lot of taper on the top end of it. It goes down pretty good, and then it rounds over pretty good down there. So I'm going to lose a lot on this one. This whole log had folds in it here where it grew, I don't know, multiple trees grew together or something. Anyway, it's folded in together, and this end here has a fold in it that goes down about 6 inches or more. So I'll have to see what it's going to look like when I cut into that. But I went ahead and rolled it over and decided I was going to square this up and see where I'm going to go from there. I may be done for the day. My back's telling me I'm pretty close to being done for the day. But I'll look this over and see what to do. Try to figure out what I'm going to do with this log. It is a beautiful looking log, but once you get to whittling on it, it's not near as nice as what you'd hoped, what you think when you look at it. I did lose some usable wood in the cadmium layer on that second face, because that's where it was laying down on the ground, and that rotted into the green wood on that in the middle of that log. But that, I'm just scratching, getting flitches out of that cadmium layer anyway. That's not the best wood. That's all sapwood is all prone to rot, even on this yellow cedar. So get what I can out of it. If I get the sapwood and can make decent boards out of it, fine. If I don't, well, that's the way it goes. Well, anyway, this one's going to be whittled down some more. Like I said, this end here has got a big fold in it. It goes down about 6 inches. I'm not going to know what it looks like till I get it cut. It's been a couple of days since I milled up this log here. I got it slabbed up, 3 good faces on it, and then I cut it into 2 6-inch cants. My son rolled it over for me to get it ready to start slicing up into boards, but then I quit. We've had 3 days of heavy rain out here, and I haven't felt like working. And yesterday my back was so bad that I just sat in all day with the TENS unit on my back, and didn't feel very good. So anyway, it's not raining right now today. Got a little break in the rain. My back is a little bit better. Figured I'd get out and start slicing that thing up a little bit and get a little bit done on that. Taking some measurements on it. I'm going to make my first cut at 16 inches, which is going to take most of the wane off of that and give me a start on making some 2x. I swept all the sawdust off of those flitches that I made there, and I've got 1 2x flitch laying there on the ground, and with that rain on there, washed all the sawdust off, and boy, the wood there is just gorgeous. It's dried out a little bit now, so it doesn't show quite like it did when it was wet with that yellow and the grain pattern on there, but it's just beautiful. I made that first cut 16 inches up from the bottom. That didn't quite clean up that first cut, the first 2 boards actually, but I'd measured from the butt end down there out 12 feet, and that took all of the wane and most of the sapwood off out 12 feet. So what I'm using these boards for is either 12 footers or 10 footers. So most of this end, all this wane on this end will get cut off, and they make pretty nice boards there, 2x6s. Well, I've got 8 2x6s cut, and I've got 2 8x6s or 6x8s left there on the deck. Now the bottom one, I'm going to have a hard time making anything good out of that. We'll see how it turns out, but that's got that defect in it on the one side. On the other side, the other 6x8 on the other side is going to be good all the way down to the last one. So I can get 8 more 2x6s out of that. Now ordinarily I just go ahead and flip those off now. They're getting down to the point where they start interfering in the throat of that mill. I could make another cut on it, but I'd have to pull the guide rollers out farther, and then eventually I'd have to throw them off anyway. I can't cut all the way down the full 16-inch depth on that. So like I said, ordinarily I just flip those off over here into the scab pile until they got done, and then go stack them up. But the mill is running very good for the most part. Since I worked on it, I adjusted the valves, put new plugs in it, put new set of points in it, and set those up and stuff. And that didn't solve all my problems, but it was running rough. But I adjusted the carburetor and got it running pretty smooth. But that high-speed needle on the carburetor keeps backing out a little bit and riching it up, making it run rough as you run it. So I've got to adjust that, and with that, you can't reach in there and just adjust it because the air filter, the air cleaner is in the way, and with that exhaust system the way it is, it's right in there close, and it gets pretty doggone hot in there. I've already burned my fingers once trying that. So I just backed the mill off there and shut it down. I'll go ahead and move these boards out of the way, and I'll let that engine cool off a little bit, and then I'll adjust that carburetor. Again, it was running pretty good the first few cuts, and then the last cut it was starting to pop a little bit, getting a little bit too rich. So anyway, I'll move these out of the way and get those stacked up, and then we'll adjust that carburetor and start all over again. Well, I've hauled all those the other 8 2x6s over to the drying shed and stacked them up in there. They're not really going to dry because they're not stickered. They're just all laying on one on top of the other one. But I got them out of there. And then I come back, adjusted the carburetor on the mill. So we got 8 more of these, but unfortunately they're not all usable. These boards are intended to be exposed. They're going to be the deck on the porch and over the head in the ceiling. Cosmetically, I want them to be pretty nice. Some of them are going to be okay, but a lot of these are not near as nice as I thought they would be. Pretty disappointed in this log. It looked like it was going to be a pretty good log just standing off from a distance, and I had a defect down on this end of it that went down in, and then that turned into some sapwood that is kind of squirrely in there, goes quite a ways down into the log. You can kind of see the split there from that on the end down here. That goes up and affects those 2 boards there, which kind of ruins them because it goes down there quite a ways. And I lost quite a bit of the wood from the different other surface defects that were in the log. There was some folds in it that went in, and I kind of spoiled it. But once I got to cutting it, got around and got the defects off of it, I thought it was going to be pretty nice. There's 2 2x flitches right there on the ground, and they're just gorgeous, except for where the fold is down on the end. The grain on those is just beautiful. I've got a couple of 1-inch flitches over here in my 1-inch stack that I cleaned all the sawdust off of them, and when the rain hit it and it got wet, it was just absolutely stunning, just beautiful. So I was hoping I was going to get good wood out of the rest of this. I knew I was going to have a little bit of trouble with this outside cant here, the lower portion of it, but I thought I was going to get the rest of it was going to be pretty good. But I wound up with some ring shake in there. So this outside cant here, you can see, there we go, like hold the camera steady, you can see the splits in the grain here. That goes almost all the way down, well, it goes all the way down to the end down here, and it absorbs, got a little bit of, it's not really rot, but almost rot. I guess there's a little bit of softness right in there. Of course, that can be cut off here or farther, but you can see how that pulled that moisture up that log. Well, anyway, this ring shank here kind of ruins it. Doesn't hurt it much for structural use. My son can use those on his moose hunting camp for floor joists in there. They'll be fine for that. But for what I was looking for, it's not very good. Now this outer cant here is pretty nice. That one's pretty good. You get up above the butt here a little bit and trim that off, and that one's pretty. Anyway, this is just water here that's been pulled in through the splits in the wood and pulled up there just to capillary action. Let's see how that. Well, that board's not so bad. I have to clean the sawdust off of that to see how that second board is. But then the third board down and the fourth board, the bottom one, are both foobarred down here on this other end. I was hoping I wouldn't have to cut any more logs. I was hoping I'd get enough boards out of here. Of course, I'm going to get 2 nice 2x6s out of this one and the one underneath it, and then one out of the one underneath that. So those will be good. A ring shake like that is caused by 2 different things. The primary cause of it is the wind blowing, and the strong winds as the trees rock back and forth, it causes the inner layers in the heartwood to separate. The outer layers don't usually do it unless it's a really strong wind, but the inner layers will separate and fracture from the bending, the flexing from the wind. Not all trees do that. Some of them have a little stronger grain structure or are a little more flexible and they don't do that. But big trees have a tendency, the bigger the trees are, the more likely there is to be ring shake or shake in the middle of the tree from that. Another thing that can cause that is falling the tree incorrectly. If you fall a tree and it hits unsupported in the middle, hits hard on one end, falls across a little gully or something like that and hits hard on the end, or hits a stump or something like that, that can cause it to fracture the rings to separate too in the log, and that happens quite a bit with these big spruce trees that we have in this country. But this one, there's a little bit of rot down in the bottom, and that pulls the moisture up in that shake and checks and causes it to rot, although there is no rot in it except for what was down here on this end where that one defect was. So anyway, I'm kind of disappointed with that log. I was hoping I'd be finished with my 2x6s with all my lumber cutting, or the cutting the 2x6s with this one. I'm going to have to do another count on them and see how many I've got. I'll have to get these other 2-inch flitches up there so I can get those milled up, but I can't do those by myself. I'll have to get my son to help me with those. Those are just too heavy for me to work on anymore, especially right now with my back the way it is. So, well, I got four 2-inch flitches down there. Or do I have 5? Anyway, I'll get some more boards out of those, and those are mostly pretty good. I got one of those 2-inch flitches on there and stood up, about strained myself doing it, but I got it up there. And usually just one 2-inch one won't stand up there by itself, but I took a piece of 1-inch cut off and I stuck up on the outside there so it would square up better against those dogs. I set the mill up to 15 inches, which would take most of the wane off, a little more than halfway down that flitch. Cut that off. I was going to make a 3x2 out of it, and once I got to looking at it, it decided to do something a little different. I made 3/4 inch passes down it, so I got 4 3/4 inch by 2-inch last strips, whatever. Cut those into stickers for sticking between the rows of lumber. I'm going to need a whole bunch more stickers to sticker all this stuff so it dries good before we start planing it. And then I got 2 really nice 2x6s out of that. Those are really nice ones. That was that one outside flitch that could come off of there. It turned out real nice. That was the best one of them. I got 2 more 2-inch flitches down there on the ground, that either 2 or 3 of them that I got to get up there. But that one was fairly easy to cut because it had one square edge, the full length of it. It had one real good edge on it, and only one edge had wane on it. So that one was really easy to set up and cut. The other ones have got wane on both sides of them, so they're going to be a little bit different. Anyway, that gives me 2 more really nice 2x6s and some stickers.